Earth burned. The sky, once a canvas of blue and white, was now a swirling inferno of ash and fire. Zeldar warships hovered like vultures above the dying world, their energy weapons carving deep scars into the land. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, burning metal, and something far worse, the stench of death. Marcus Voss had never believed the warnings. The Terran Defense Council had spoken of war, of a coming storm beyond the edges of explored space. Yet, humanity had always survived. They had beaten each other into submission for centuries, conquered their own planet, tamed the stars. What force could truly threaten them? Now, as he lay in the ruins of what had once been New Berlin, bleeding from a gash in his forehead, he had his answer. The Zeldar Dominion had not come to negotiate. They had come to consume. A towering Zeldar warrior, clad in segmented armor that shimmered like obsidian, strode through the wreckage. Its mandibles clicked in satisfaction as it surveyed the corpses littering the streets. Humans, so fragile, so weak. Voss clenched his teeth. Weak. That was what they thought of his people. His fingers closed around the grip of a plasma pistol, half buried beneath the rubble. The Zeldar warrior turned, sensing movement. Too slow. Voss fired, the bolt of searing blue energy slamming into the alien's chest. The creature staggered, chittering in surprise, then fell. For a brief, fleeting moment, he allowed himself to hope. Then the sky opened. A beam of red light, wider than any skyscraper, lanced down from the Zeldar flagship. The earth screamed, the ground melting into slag as the city was erased in an instant. Marcus Voss never had the chance to scream. Years passed. Earth was silent now. The remnants of humanity had been scattered across the stars, either exterminated or enslaved. The Zeldar did not believe in mercy. They viewed other species as nothing more than resources. Humans, in particular, had a special place in their empire, as laborers, as test subjects, as entertainment in blood-soaked arenas. In the bowels of a mining colony on the toxic world of Kessler 9, a small group of humans toiled under the brutal watch of their alien masters. Among them was Elias Rourke, once a decorated officer in the Terran fleet. His hands, once meant to guide star ships, now shoveled radioactive ore. But his mind was still sharp. His spirit unbroken. Every night, in the shadows of the slave quarters, whispers spread. Humanity was not extinct. They had survivors. Fighters. And something else. A secret buried deep beneath the surface of this very world. A secret that could change everything. Deep within the mines, Rourke's team worked tirelessly, digging beneath layers of rock and metal. The Zeldar believed they were extracting valuable minerals. They had no idea what truly lay beneath. The first sign came when Juno Carter, an engineer with a past in ship design, uncovered an impossible structure, smooth, ancient, and unmistakably Terran. An old warship. Not just any warship. A relic from the lost days of humanity's golden age. As Rourke wiped the sweat from his face, staring at the gleaming hull beneath the dirt, a slow grin formed. The Zeldar thought humanity was broken. That they were nothing more than animals waiting to be slaughtered. They were wrong. This was the beginning. The first step. Once, humanity had been prey. But the galaxy had forgotten one thing. A wounded animal, cornered and desperate, could become something far more dangerous. It could become a predator. The air in the mines of Kessler 9 was thick with the scent of sweat and rust. Humans, shackled and exhausted, worked beneath the watchful eyes of their Zeldar overseers. The aliens took pleasure in their suffering, using whips of crackling plasma to punish even the slightest hesitation. But tonight, everything would change. Elias Rourke crouched beside Juno Carter, his eyes fixed on the ancient warship buried beneath the rock. Its hull, though scarred by time, gleamed with a faint, unnatural glow. This was no ordinary relic. This was a Terran Predator-class stealth frigate, a war machine from a forgotten era. Juno ran a hand over the ship's insignia. This thing, it's alive. Rourke shot her a look. What do you mean? She pressed her palm against a smooth panel near the entrance. A soft hum vibrated through the metal. The ship responded. Lights flickered to life, illuminating the cavern in an eerie blue glow. Dust and rock crumbled as hidden mechanisms whirred. A deep voice, synthetic yet unmistakably human, echoed through the chamber. Terran biosignatures detected. Initiating reboot sequence. Rourke's pulse quickened. If this ship was still functional, if its systems were intact, then they had just found the single greatest weapon against the Zeldar Dominion. Juno's hands flew over a nearby console, wiping away centuries of dust. It's got a self-repair matrix. We might be able to get it operational, but we'll need power. A sharp, guttural screech echoed through the cavern. Rourke turned, heart hammering. A Zeldar warden stood at the tunnel entrance, its 4 yellow eyes wide with shock. Its claws reached for the alarm beacon on its belt. No. Rourke moved without thinking. In a single motion, he grabbed a jagged piece of metal from the ground and lunged. The Zeldar barely had time to react before Rourke slammed the makeshift weapon into its throat. A wet gurgle escaped the alien's mandibles as it collapsed. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Juno exhaled. Damn. Rourke wiped his hands. We need to move. Now. The other prisoners gathered around the ship, their faces a mixture of awe and desperation. For years, they had been beaten, starved, and worked to the bone. The idea of resistance had been a distant fantasy. Not anymore. A man stepped forward, Darius Cole, a former insurgent from the colonies. You're telling me this thing still works? Juno nodded. It's in low-power mode, but if we can reroute energy from the mining generators, we can get it airborne. Cole looked at the Zeldar corpse. Then let's do it. The mining facility's power core was housed in a heavily fortified control room, guarded by a dozen Zeldar soldiers. It was an impossible target, at least for ordinary slaves. But humans had always excelled at adapting. Using stolen uniforms and knowledge of the facility's layout, Rourke and his team infiltrated the power station. Juno worked the control panel, bypassing the alien security systems while Rourke and Cole kept watch. A Zeldar patrol passed by, their mandibles clicking in their guttural language. For a tense moment, Rourke thought they had been spotted. But the aliens moved on. Juno smirked. Idiots. With one final keystroke, the power grid surged. Energy diverted from the mine's main systems flowed into the ancient warship. Back in the cavern, the ship shuddered. Its engines flared, shedding centuries of dust as it roared back to life. Then the alarms blared. The Zeldar were fast. Within minutes, squads of armed enforcers swarmed the tunnels, their energy weapons cutting down escaping prisoners. Rourke sprinted towards the ship, shouting into his stolen Zeldar comm, Juno. Tell me you've got control. Inside the warship, Juno's fingers flew across the console. I've got something, but I don't know how much fight this thing has left. A plasma bolt whizzed past Rourke's head, melting the wall beside him. He dove behind cover as Cole returned fire with a stolen Zeldar rifle. The ship's AI suddenly spoke, its voice now sharper. Emergency launch protocol activated. Weapons primed. Engaging hostiles. Turrets emerged from the ship's hull and opened fire. The cavern filled with the thunderous whir of railguns, tearing through the Zeldar forces like paper. Rourke didn't hesitate. He sprinted up the ship's ramp as the last of his people piled in behind him. Juno hit the final command. The ship lifted off, The cavern collapsed as the frigate burst through the surface of Kessler 9, its engines screaming. Rourke collapsed into a seat, chest heaving. They had done it. They had escaped. The humans on board had lost everything, family, homes, entire worlds. But as they drifted into the stars, watching Kessler 9 shrink in the distance, something new burned in their hearts. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors. The Zeldar had made a mistake. They had let humans live. And now, humanity was coming for them. The stolen Predator-class frigate drifted in the void, its sleek black hull blending seamlessly into the darkness. It had no official name, at least, not yet. But to the humans on board, it was freedom. Elias Rourke stood in the ship's command center, watching the endless expanse of stars through the reinforced viewport. Around him, the former slaves of Kessler 9 worked tirelessly, repurposing the ship's ancient technology, training with scavenged weapons, and preparing for something humanity had not attempted in years: revenge. Juno Carter's voice crackled over the intercom. "I've got a target." Rourke turned. "What is it?" Juno's smirk was audible in her voice. "A Zeldar supply convoy. Small fleet. No escorts." A silence settled over the command deck. For years, humans had been nothing but prey. Running. Hiding. Dying. Now, for the first time since the fall of Earth, they had a chance to strike back. Rourke's lips curled into a wolfish grin. "Let's make them bleed." The Zeldar convoy drifted through the nebula, oblivious to the shadow hunting them. The fleet consisted of 3 massive hauler ships, each loaded with supplies for the Dominion's war machine. Normally, such convoys were escorted by heavily armed warships. But the Zeldar weren't afraid of humans anymore. They should have been. From the black void, the Predator-class frigate lurched forward. The Zeldar barely had time to react before the first attack came. Boom! The frigate's railguns fired, launching hypervelocity slugs that ripped through the first hauler's engines. The ship detonated instantly, a fiery explosion lighting up the nebula. Inside the Zeldar command ship, Overseer Vereshkul screeched in fury. Impossible, asterisk. The Zeldar scrambled, but it was already too late. Juno's fingers flew across the console. Activating EMP pulse, now. A shockwave of energy burst from the frigate, disabling the Zeldar ship's systems. Their weapons flickered, shields collapsed, and for a brief, terrifying moment, they were vulnerable. Rourke grabbed his rifle and turned to his team. "We board. No survivors." The humans launched themselves toward the disabled Zeldar haulers, using magnetic grappling lines to pull themselves into the enemy ships. Rourke's boots hit the deck with a solid thud. Plasma rifle raised, he and his team breached the cargo bay. The Zeldar inside had barely recovered from the EMP when death came for them. Darius Cole took down 2 aliens before they could reach their weapons. Juno fired a single, precise shot into a Zeldar captain's throat. The humans moved like predators, their strikes swift and brutal. A wounded Zeldar tried to crawl away. Rourke loomed over it, his rifle humming. The alien hissed. "You were prey." Rourke's eyes were cold. "Not anymore." A single shot ended the conversation. Within minutes, the remaining Zeldar surrendered. The once mighty slavers knelt before the species they had once broken. Rourke stood over the cowering Overseer, Vereshkul, who trembled with rage and fear. "You don't understand," the Zeldar spat. "The Dominion will hunt you down." Rourke smirked. "Let them try." He turned to Juno. "Broadcast the message." She nodded and activated the captured Zeldar comms. Across the sector, Dominion ships received a single transmission. "We are humanity. We are no longer your slaves, ***. We are no longer your prey. We are coming for you." And then, the humans executed every last Zeldar on board. The frigate disappeared into the void, leaving only wreckage and a warning. For the first time in decades, the galaxy feared the name of humanity. The name humans once carried no weight in the galaxy. They were nothing more than a conquered species, a footnote in the history of the Zeldar Dominion. Not anymore. The Zeldar had felt the first sting of human retaliation. A supply convoy had vanished into the void, its wreckage discovered days later, stripped of everything valuable. Its crew had been slaughtered. The Dominion dismissed it as an isolated incident. Then it happened again. And again. One by one, the Dominion's outer colonies went dark. Humanity had returned, not as victims, not as refugees, but as something else entirely. Hunters. Killers. Ghosts in the void, ****. The War of Shadows had begun. Aboard the stolen Predator-class frigate, now named Black Solace, Elias Rourke watched the galaxy burn. Reports flooded in from scattered resistance cells across Dominion space. The remnants of humanity had finally begun to rise. Juno Carter leaned over a tactical display, highlighting the latest strikes. Hit-and-run raids on 4 separate colonies. Fuel depots destroyed, comm stations crippled. The Dominion is starting to panic. Rourke folded his arms. Good. Let's make them afraid of the dark. Darius Cole, their most ruthless operative, grinned. We should hit something big next. Something they can't ignore. Rourke thought for a moment before his eyes locked onto a blinking red dot on the star map. Kesrith Prime. The Dominion's largest slave processing world. A fortress that churned out thousands of broken prisoners for labor camps across the sector. Cole's grin widened. I like the way you think, boss. Kesrith Prime was a floating hell, a massive orbital prison where captured species were processed, categorized, and shipped off to serve the Dominion's endless war machine. It was surrounded by 3 battlecruisers and hundreds of automated defense turrets. A frontal assault would be suicide. So, humans did what they did best. They adapted. Disguised as a Zeldar prisoner transport, Black Solace approached the station. Every human on board wore biomimetic cloaking suits, making them appear as Zeldar overseers on Dominion scanners. It wouldn't fool them forever, but they didn't need forever. They just needed long enough to get inside. As they passed the security checkpoint, Juno whispered, "All right, we're in. We've got about 10 minutes before they realize we don't belong here." Rourke's fingers hovered over his rifle. Then let's make them regret letting us in. The moment the human strike team stepped onto the main processing deck, they moved with precision and fury. The first Zeldar never even saw it coming. Rourke's knife slid between its mandibles, severing its throat in a single motion. The alien collapsed, gurgling. Then the real killing began. Silenced weapons spat death into the ranks of the Dominion slavers. Plasma rounds hissed through the air, punching through armor, melting flesh. The Zeldar never stood a chance. By the time the alarms blared, it was already too late. Juno hacked into the control terminals, overriding the station's security systems. The cages opened. Across the prison decks, thousands of captives, humans, Tarkari, Varelians, and dozens of other enslaved species, ***, were suddenly free ***. Rourke activated the station's internal comms. His voice rang through every hallway, every chamber. To all prisoners, this is your moment. Kill your captors. Take back your freedom. Fight. The uprising exploded. The battle turned into a massacre. The slaves, desperate, starving, furious, tore into the Zeldar guards with savage brutality. The aliens, once the masters, became the hunted. Rourke's strike team moved through the chaos, planting high-explosive charges at critical points. The Dominion's reinforcements arrived too late. As Black Solace pulled away from the station, Rourke watched from the bridge as Kesrith Prime was engulfed in fire. The orbital prison detonated, torn apart by its own power cores. Thousands of slaves had been freed. And the Zeldar had lost one of their most critical strongholds. For the first time in history, a Dominion world had fallen to humans. News of the attack spread like wildfire. Other enslaved species, once fearful of rebellion, now saw hope. The Zeldar Dominion issued an emergency decree. Any human found in our space is to be exterminated on sight. But the damage was done. Humanity had gone from a scattered, broken race to a nightmare in the stars. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were waging war. And the Zeldar had no idea what was coming next. The Zeldar Dominion was reeling. A single warship, crewed by what they once considered an extinct species, had not only raided their supply lines but had toppled Kesrith Prime, one of the largest slave processing centers in the sector. The attack had sparked revolts across dozens of Dominion-controlled worlds. The embers of resistance had turned into an unstoppable inferno. And now, the Zeldar had no choice but to respond. High Warlord Xerectaz, commander of the Dominion's 7th Fleet, stood aboard his flagship, Vareshkar, his 4 yellow eyes burning with fury. The latest reports from the sector were worse than expected. The humans were not just a nuisance anymore. They were a threat. They will be crushed, Xerectaz hissed, mandibles clicking with rage. Their stolen warship will be torn from the stars. A junior officer hesitated. The humans have evaded every attempt to track them, my lord. Their vessel is unlike anything we have ever faced. It strikes, disappears into the void, and Xerectaz silenced him with a single, razor-clawed strike. The officer collapsed in a pool of his own blood. The High Warlord's voice was a growl. We will not be humiliated by vermin. Prepare the fleet. The Dominion was sending an armada to hunt down one ship. But Elias Rourke had other plans. On board Black Solace, Rourke studied the stolen Zeldar intel. Their movements were predictable, **** arrogance made them reckless ****. The 7th Fleet was mobilizing, and their course was clear. They were heading for the Helios Rift, where the Dominion believed the humans were hiding. Juno Carter leaned back in her chair, a smirk playing on her lips. They think they've cornered us. Darius Cole chuckled darkly. Poor bastards. Because Black Solace wasn't in the Helios Rift at all. Instead, Rourke and his crew had spent the last week seeding the rift with hundreds of stolen Zeldar mines, disabling Dominion sensor buoys, and rerouting old comm frequencies to feed false intelligence. It was a trap. And the 7th Fleet was sailing straight into it. Rourke turned to his crew, his voice calm but sharp. We hit them when they least expect it. We don't just destroy them. We make an example of them. The Zeldar 7th Fleet emerged from warp, their 20 warships scanning the system, hunting for the elusive human vessel. Xerectaz sat upon his command throne, sneering. Humans are cowards. They run and hide. They will not fight us head-on. Then the first explosion rocked his flagship. A chain reaction ignited as the Dominion's lead ships triggered the hidden mines. Fire and debris erupted across the fleet as vessels were ripped apart. Panic spread through the ranks. We've lost the frigates, the Zeldar officer screeched. Before they could react, Black Solace struck. From the darkness, the Predator-class frigate decloaked and unleashed a storm of railgun fire, tearing through the remaining Dominion vessels. Juno fired off a barrage of hacked torpedoes, causing the Dominion's own missiles to turn against their capital ships. The 7th Fleet was in chaos. Rourke watched the battlefield unfold with cold satisfaction. Target their command ship. Vareshkar, Xerectaz's prized flagship, was suddenly locked in the crosshairs. The warlord barely had time to react before Black Solace's main cannons punched a hole straight through his vessel's bridge. His final scream was cut short as his ship imploded. The 7th Fleet, the pride of the Dominion, was annihilated in less than 15 minutes. The few surviving Zeldar ships fled in terror. The message was clear. The Zeldar were not invincible. Their war machine could be broken. And humanity was not just fighting back, they were winning. Across the sector, Dominion-controlled worlds erupted in rebellion. Alien species that had once cowered in fear of the Zeldar now took up arms. They whispered humanity's name with awe and hope. And for the first time in decades, the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity was no longer the prey. They were the predators. The fall of the 7th Fleet sent shockwaves through the Dominion. The Zeldar, who had once believed humanity to be a broken, extinct species, now whispered the name of their tormentors with fear. But fear alone was not enough to stop a wounded empire from retaliating. The Dominion had been caught off guard, humiliated by a single warship and its crew of outcasts. The destruction of Kesrith Prime and the ambush at Helios Rift had shattered their illusion of dominance. Now, the Zeldar were done underestimating humanity. They wanted vengeance. From their hidden base in a derelict asteroid field, Rourke and his crew monitored the Dominion's response. The stolen Predator-class frigate, Black Solace, was being repaired after the brutal Helios Rift battle. Juno Carter sat at the main console, her eyes scanning decrypted Zeldar transmissions. "They're moving everything. The Dominion High Council has declared humanity a galactic-level threat. They're calling for an extermination campaign." Darius Cole let out a low whistle. "We pissed them off that bad, huh?" Rourke folded his arms. "Good. We've spent years running. Now, they're the ones afraid." But Juno's expression darkened. "It's worse than that. The Dominion has activated the Tyrant Protocol." Silence fell over the room. Rourke's jaw tightened. "Explain." Juno took a breath. "They're pulling every warship from their borders, every battalion from occupied worlds, every fleet from other warfronts. They're consolidating into a single unstoppable force, one designed to wipe us out completely." It was the worst-case scenario. The Dominion was no longer fighting a rebellion. They were waging genocide. And it would begin with a single decisive battle. The Zeldar had tracked humanity's movements. They knew Black Solace had been hiding in the asteroid belt. And they were coming. Thousands of Dominion warships descended upon the system, their glowing engines turning the void into a blazing inferno. The sheer scale of the armada was overwhelming, dozens of dreadnoughts, carriers, and swarms of fighter craft. No one had ever survived an onslaught like this. But then again, humanity had never played by the rules. As the Dominion forces entered the asteroid field, Rourke's trap was sprung. Plasma mines detonated, sending titanic space rocks crashing into the fleet. Entire warships were crushed instantly, their hulls splitting apart like paper. Then Black Solace struck from the shadows. Juno unleashed a hacked virus into the Dominion's network, shutting down their targeting systems. Cole led a squadron of stolen fighters, weaving between enemy lines, dropping explosives into their carriers' vulnerable exhaust vents. Rourke himself took the helm, piloting Black Solace like a blade through flesh, weaving between enemy cruisers, tearing into their ranks with railgun fire and torpedoes. But the Dominion had brought too many ships. One by one, the asteroids were cleared. The mines were depleted. And the Dominion closed in. With Black Solace surrounded, the end seemed inevitable. Rourke's voice was calm, but his knuckles were white on the controls. "Options?" Juno's hands flew across the console. "There's only one way out of this." She pulled up a gravitational anomaly on the star map. A dead star on the system's edge. A collapsed singularity, a miniature black hole, its pull just strong enough to drag in nearby ships. If they could lure the Dominion fleet close enough, the singularity would do what no human weapon could, wipe them out completely. But there was a catch. If they miscalculated by even a fraction, Black Solace would be destroyed too. Rourke grinned. "I like those odds." With engines blazing at full power, Black Solace fled toward the dead star, baiting the Dominion into pursuit. The Zeldar warships followed, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They didn't realize their mistake until it was too late. The Singularity's pull grabbed hold of the fleet, dragging dozens of ships into the inescapable abyss. The Dominion dreadnoughts, the pride of their empire, were crushed into oblivion. The void itself swallowed their mightiest warriors, leaving nothing but silence. And at the last possible moment, Black Solace executed a precise jump, skimming the event horizon and escaping, *** by a breath of air ***. The impossible had happened. Humanity had broken the Dominion's spine. Word spread faster than light. The invincible Zeldar Dominion had failed to destroy humanity. Their fleets were ruined, their borders exposed, their enemies emboldened. The oppressed species of the galaxy rose in unison. The Tarkari, the Varalians, the scattered remnants of 100 conquered worlds, they all rallied behind humanity. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was uniting, not under the Dominion, but against them. Rourke stood on the bridge, watching the stars. Juno smirked. So what now? Rourke's voice was steady, unyielding. Now? We finish this war. The Dominion was dying. Humanity had done the impossible. They had shattered the Zelvar's fleets, obliterated their strongest outposts, and turned the enslaved races of the galaxy into an unstoppable rebellion. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Zelvar High Council was afraid. And fear made them desperate. On the Dominion homeworld, Zelvokr, the remaining warlords convened in a vast, towering citadel, the seat of their crumbling empire. The air was thick with tension. Every ruling Zelvar in the chamber had once laughed at the thought of humanity being a threat. Now, they had lost entire fleets to the species they once enslaved. High Chancellor Varknir slammed a clawed fist onto the stone table. Our fleets are in ruins. The outer colonies are in rebellion. The humans, his mandibles clicked in frustration, the humans have turned the galaxy against us. Another warlord hissed, eyes narrowed. We still control Zelvokr. As long as our homeworld stands, the Dominion survives. They clung to that hope, that their world, their fortress, their last bastion of power, could never fall. But they were wrong. Because Black Solace was coming. It wasn't just humans anymore. The Tarkari, the Varalians, the Dozari, and countless other freed species had answered the call to war. A united fleet of thousands of warships, once scattered and enslaved, now descended upon the Zeldar homeworld, the very heart of their empire. For centuries, the Dominion had ruled with fear and fire. Now, that same fire rained down upon them. From the bridge of Black Solace, Rourke surveyed the battle. The sky was burning, Zeldar warships, desperate and panicked, scrambled to hold back the invasion, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. Darius Cole let out a low whistle. Never thought I'd live to see this. Juno Carter smirked. Enjoy the view while you can. We still have a war to finish. Rourke's eyes locked onto the towering citadel in the capital city. Then let's end it. With a command, Black Solace broke through the enemy defenses, leading a wave of attack ships straight to the surface. It was time to finish what humanity started. The final battle was brutal. Zelvokr was a fortress world, protected by vast planetary cannons, elite legions of soldiers, and layers of automated defenses. But nothing could stop the wrath of an entire galaxy. The Zeldar fought like cornered beasts, but the tide had already turned. Tarkari warriors tore through the Dominion's last ground forces, Dozari bombers leveled their defensive outposts, and Varalian strike teams hunted down the last warlords in the capital. And at the center of it all, humanity stood victorious. Rourke, Cole, and Juno led the final assault on the citadel, cutting through Zeldar guards like ghosts in the shadows. When they breached the council chamber, the High Chancellor and his warlords cowered before them. There was no negotiation. No surrender. Humanity did what the Zeldar had done to countless others, they ended them. With the death of their leaders and the destruction of their last stronghold, the Zeldar Dominion ceased to exist. Their empire, once feared across the stars, was reduced to ashes. And in its place, something new emerged. The United Free Systems, a new galactic power, formed from the survivors of the Zeldar's reign. But at its heart, at its very core, stood humanity. Rourke stood on the ruined balcony of the Zeldar citadel, watching the dawn rise over a world that no longer belonged to its former masters. Juno stepped beside him, arms crossed. It's over. Cole chuckled. Nah. It's just beginning. Because humanity had not just won the war. They had proven that they were never meant to be prey. They were hunters, forged in the crucible of war. And now, with the stars open before them, they would decide the fate of the galaxy. For the first time in history, humanity stood at the top of the food chain. And they were never going back.